Ever wonder how French kings kept their power for over 1300 years? It wasn't just through lavish parties and political marriages. From 481 to 1848, a long line of rulers used fear, cruelty, and some of the most brutal punishments imaginable to stay on the throne. Today, we're journeying through more than a millennium of French history to uncover the signature punishment of every single king. We're not skipping anyone, from the Merovingians to the Bourbons. Get ready to see the dark side of the crown. We begin in an extremely brutal era, the Merovingian dynasty. Clovis I, the founder, would execute rival kings after luring them into fake negotiations. His successor, Childebert I, preferred a larger scale, burning entire rebellious cities to the ground as a warning. Clothar I took it a step further, forcing his own relatives to be executed just to seize their land. Charibert I used public humiliation and exile on disobedient nobles. His brother Guntram confiscated entire estates and threw his enemies into monastic prisons. And Chilperic I, he was infamous for blinding and mutilating his rivals. This pattern of cruelty continued. Clothar II ordered mass executions of nobles he accused of treason. Dagobert I favored harsh corporal punishments for anyone who dared resist his taxes. Clovis II sold rebels into lifelong slavery. Clothar III seized lands and destroyed noble fortresses. Theuderic III had captured rebels publicly beaten. Clovis III sent political prisoners to tiny monastic cells. Childeric II wasn't afraid to have nobles harshly flogged for breaking royal laws. The later Merovingians, often called the do-nothing kings, still had a ruthless streak. Clovis IV would seize all the property from the families of traitors. Childebert III simply exiled his political opponents. Dagobert III destroyed entire rebel villages. Chilperic II had captured enemies executed right on the battlefield. Theuderic IV imprisoned nobles without even giving them a trial. And the last Merovingian, Childeric III, was known for forcing his political rivals into monastic imprisonment, a popular punishment of the era. Next came the Carolingian dynasty, founded by Pepin the Short. He deposed and exiled rebel nobles. His legendary son, Charlemagne, well known for uniting Europe, also ordered the mass execution of rebellious Saxon leaders. Charlemagne's own son, Louis the Pious, turned that harshness inward, forcing rebellious family members into monastic exile. His son, Charles the Bald, preferred seizing rebel territories. Louis II, the Stammerer, punished defiant bishops by confiscating their church lands. Louis III revived an old favorite, public humiliation rituals for criminals. His brother Carloman II simply destroyed rebel-held towns. The empire started to fragment, but the punishments remained harsh. Charles the Fat imposed heavy fines and locked nobles in towers. Odo of Paris, a non-Carolingian king, implemented severe battlefield punishments for deserters. Charles the Simple used long-term imprisonment for rival aristocrats. Robert I stripped nobles of their lands for disloyalty. Rudolph of Burgundy burned the strongholds of rebellious lords. Louis IV took it a step further by taking noble families hostage. Lothar confiscated the lands of Burgundy's rebellious barons. And the final Carolingian, Louis V, used heavy taxation penalties to punish defiance. This brings us to the long-reigning Capetian dynasty. The founder, Hugh Capet, established his power by stripping feudal titles from disloyal nobles. His son, Robert II, introduced a horrifying new punishment, the burning of heretics. Henry I went back to basics, destroying the castles of rebellious vassals. Philip I simply confiscated his enemies' property and banished them. Louis VI, known as the Fat, made a name for himself by crushing robber barons and demolishing their castles. Louis VII exiled nobles who dared to oppose his marriage policies. The dynasty grew stronger and the punishments became more centralized. Philip II, or Philip Augustus, confiscated lands and executed traitors. His son Louis VIII used crusader-style tactics to seize rebel territories. The famously pious Louis IX, or Saint Louis, had a different approach, burning confiscated books and leading harsh anti-heretic campaigns. Philip III deported rebellious groups, but his son, Philip IV, the Iron King, earned his nickname with one of history's most infamous acts, the torture and execution of the Knights Templar. The final Capetians were a troubled line. Louis X imprisoned political rivals without trial. John I was an infant king who ruled for only 5 days, so we'll give him a pass. Philip V used punitive taxation and property seizure to maintain control. And Charles IV crushed rebellions with brutal military raids. When the Capetian line died out, the House of Valois took the throne, kicking off the 100 Years' War. Philip VI imposed harsh penalties during times of famine and war. John II levied severe fines on peasants after they revolted. Charles V, the Wise, focused on destroying rebellious castles. His son, Charles VI, suffered from mental illness, and his reign saw brutal state-led purges carried out by rival factions. Charles VII, the king helped by Joan of Arc, showed no mercy to traitors and collaborators, having them executed. Then came one of the most feared kings in French history, Louis XI, the Spider King. His preferred punishment for high-ranking nobles was locking them in small iron cages, called les fillettes, sometimes for years. His son Charles VIII was known for his brutal treatment of Italian rebels during his campaigns there. Louis XII continued the trend of harsh military justice. But with Francis I, we see a new target, Protestant dissenters, who were executed for their faith. His son, Henry II, made these executions for heresy a public spectacle. Francis II continued this policy, arresting and intimidating Huguenot leaders. This tension exploded under Charles IX, whose reign is forever stained by the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, a targeted mass killing of Protestants. The last Valois king, Henry III, ended his reign by assassinating his powerful rival, the Duke of Guise. This assassination paved the way for the Bourbon dynasty. The first, Henry IV, a former Protestant, had to harshly suppress the Catholic League rebels to secure his throne. His son, Louis XIII, and his minister Cardinal Richelieu asserted royal authority by systematically destroying hundreds of noble castles. This centralization of power reached its peak with Louis XIV, the Sun King. His most brutal policy was the Dragonnades, where he sent troops to live in Protestant homes, using military terror to force them to convert to Catholicism. The later Bourbons faced growing unrest. Louis XV violently suppressed major uprisings in Brittany and Paris. His grandson, Louis XVI, used military crackdowns on the early revolutionaries, a move that would ultimately lead to his own downfall and the French Revolution. After the turmoil of the Revolution and Napoleon, the Bourbons were restored. Louis XVIII began his reign with a white terror, removing any officials who had supported Napoleon. His brother, Charles X, was even more reactionary. His harsh press censorship and crackdowns on dissent led directly to the July Revolution of 1830, which forced him from the throne. This brought the final French king, Louis-Philippe I, to power. Known as the Citizen King, his reign was far from peaceful. He relied on military suppression to crush worker protests in Lyon and Paris, a brutal end to a brutal history. From executing rivals to caging nobles and terrorizing citizens, the kings of France used every tool at their disposal to maintain their grip on power for over 1,000 years. It is a stark reminder that behind the gilded halls of Versailles and the grand cathedrals lies a history written in fear and blood. What do you think was the most brutal punishment on our list? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into history.